All right, so I'm going to share my screen. We'll take a look at at our agenda. And there we go. Okay. So I have excused absences that were communicated to me from Joe Bauer, Eric Brown, Wayne Bond, and Bobby Glasser. So all four of them have an excused absence. And Nicole Alwyn will be here a little late. And so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, there's Dr. Malawish. How's it going, Dr. Malawish? So 1, 2, 3, 6. So we do have a quorum, which for our bylaws is just a majority of current members. And it looks like we are live streaming. I can see that we're streaming here. Agenda number 3 is approval of the agenda. Any questions or comments, suggestions, additions, or deletions to the draft agenda that I sent out? And I apologize for dragging my feet on getting the agenda out until today.
Looks good.
All right, hearing none, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Move.
And we got a
Second.
Second.
Awesome. All in favor, please say aye and give me a thumbs up. Awesome. Okay, I believe the agenda is approved. Approval of July meeting minutes. I have not, I did send those along. Let me know kind of how we've done the last few months. If you have, what kind of a, we can agree to approve those meeting minutes. Because I just sent them out today. So, within a week or so, if you notice any corrections, please send that along to me and I can forward it to Ray Lee, who can make any corrections. But so if there are any corrections, we can take care of that. But if not, we can go ahead and approve the July meeting minutes pending about a week or so. If you guys take a look at it. Lori, do you have something?
Just a small one. It's Tom Sauber. His last name was not correctly spelled in the minutes. It's Sauber. It was probably spelled like it sounded, but it's just a minor one. I ran through them shortly before the meeting and they looked fine to me.
Okay. Who was that again?
Tom Sauber, he's the one who's in charge of the natural areas at Western.
Oh, okay.
And he was mentioned in the minutes.
Okay. All right, so is there a motion to approve the July meeting minutes pending any corrections that are sent to me in the next week or so?
So motioned.
In a second.
I second. I think my video froze. Sorry.
Oh, okay, awesome. Yeah, I think your video is frozen too. I can't quite see it. All in favor, please give me a big thumbs up. All right, moving right along. Approval, July meeting minutes are approved. Any announcements? What's new?
I just want to echo what you already shared in the email. That MLive article about the air quality issue related to graphic packaging is very thorough. And I just want to strongly recommend anybody interested in it, give it a read.
Good.
Anybody else? Anything new this month? Anything coming up? There's Sharon. All right, hearing no more announcements. If we've got any comments by citizens, we could go ahead and listen to those now.
All right, you'll have to stop sharing your screen so I can share my audio, and I'll get that queued up. Oh, shit. Oop, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
All right, I think I just lost the video feed completely. Let me.
Yeah, because we can hear you, but we can't hear the phone calls.
I can't see you anymore either. That's why I'm trying to figure out what just happened.
Okay.
Oh, there you are. Okay. For some reason it just shuffled on another screen. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay, getting them played right now.
Good afternoon. I am calling regarding the Environmental Concerns Committee meeting tonight, and this is Wednesday, August 18th. Good afternoon, ECC members, and thank you for serving our community. My name is Iris Potter, address 1204 Manor Street. I'm calling in for the formal record regarding an agenda item of deer survey. I have phoned in prior and will continue to be strongly opposed to a deer cull or kill proposal for our community, which is one for all of us, not a few, who feel that deer are in the way. So please take a minute to visualize a large pile of deer bait placed in, let's say, Kleinstedt Preserve, for example, then sharpshooters waiting to kill the unsuspecting feeding deer at close range. Does this make us feel good and safe? No. Is this how a deer cull is done? Yes. Parks are for all of nature. This is not how I want our city to be known, spending thousands of dollars for something so extreme, cruel, inhumane, and not foolproof safe for residents. It is 2021. We must learn to coexist with our environment that includes deer and other animals, not to kill them. We are part of the reason these beautiful animals are here, and they are victims of overdevelopment of habitats, for one. So I will send an email via the chair with information that will be helpful in better understanding why this option does not work and ideas about how to best to live with wonderful wildlife, including gentle deer. Let us work together to continue to make our city an environmental leader in Michigan instead of moving backwards. Thank you. And I know that you will take citizens' input into consideration. Also, I hope that citizens will have an opportunity to speak near to the end of the meeting as well. Thank you again. Goodbye.
My name is Patricia Hollis. I live within Kalamazoo city limits, and I'm calling to protest the culling of deer. That proposal is, I think, unnecessary in Kalamazoo. It's unsafe, and it's just inhumane. There's many other methods to use to control the deer population, seeding bait or darting have been effective in other areas. I don't know why they couldn't be here. So I hope that you will seriously consider using a more humane method to reduce the deer population in Kalamazoo. Thank you.
My name is Eponine Garrett, and I'm calling in regards to the survey that was recently distributed for deer management. I wanted to call to say that I am opposed to a deer management plan that involves a deer cull. This has been proven in different locations with supporting scientific evidence to show that it is not effective as a deer management program. I am a chemist. I work in a science field, so I feel confident saying that this survey was based solely on opinion, not even knowing the outcome of it and having answered it myself. It would be interesting to see the data. However, it is not enough to make any kind of determination for anything that is a scientific matter. So I hope that the ECC will take this into consideration. And again, just want to go on record stating that I do oppose a deer cull as a potential management plan. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Andrew, and I live within the city of Kalamazoo limits, and I'm calling to comment that I oppose the proposed deer culling. Thank you.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Hillary Reddig. I live at 303 Woodward Avenue in Kalamazoo City, and I strongly oppose the deer cull. I think it is an inhumane solution to what may not even be an actual problem. I think there's been a lack of transparency, and I think deer culls have never actually worked as effective deer management plans. So I urge the Environmental Concerns Committee to strongly vote against the deer cull. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, that's it for public comments so far.
Awesome. Thanks so much. We appreciate everybody taking some time to call and to share their opinion with us on this issue. Anything that you send to the ECC, you can send directly to me, to my email. And I would be happy to share any written, and anything in writing that you have. If you feel like you've got, evidence or, examples of deer calls in other areas, we have a shared Google Drive where we keep all the documentation that we see, and I can share that with everybody on the committee. More information is always better information. So thanks very much for taking the time to share your opinions with us today, and we will chat about the deer survey here in a few minutes when we get to that on the agenda. Let's just wait, I guess, till we get to that, because it was a pretty consistent message there in the phone calls today. We'll get to it when we get to the deer survey. So let me share my screen again. All right, we've really got a pretty light agenda here today. First thing on there is Sustainability and Climate Action Plan update. As far as I know, and I met with Jamie McCarthy online on Monday, it sounds like we should see a draft plan here in the next month or so. That's the latest word from Jamie. She made it sound like it had, she had gathered the appropriate amount of feedback from all the different departments within the city, and we should expect to see a draft of that here coming up pretty soon. So there's been a small number of us from the ECC that have been meeting additionally to this meeting to just have specific kind of work time to do questions and work through stuff and give suggestions. working through, just so if anybody's kind of watching at home, the city has come up with a very long list of action items. And then in kind of our small group, with some of us on the ECC and a few other people from the community, including Dr. Denise Keel at Western, kind of came up with a ranking system, basically a priority system, because getting to all of those, it was like over 100 items, I think. Getting to all of those at once would be pretty tricky. So they're kind of putting together like a prioritization list. And so we should be able to get that small group back together to look at a draft of it. I know that Jamie is wanting to get the first draft of the plan in front of the city commission, just so they can get their eyes on it and give some feedback. So it sounds like it's coming along. Anybody else? Any questions, or does anybody else have any input there?
Yeah, I got a small one. Something I haven't thought too much about, but maybe if we can, I'm more verbalizing so that we can remember to talk about it whenever that small group comes. I'm not sure the pathway of once we have a draft plan and like once it's ready to be presented, what the pathway is for it to be implemented. If it has to go through the planning commission first, or if it just goes straight to city commission. Do you happen to know, Aaron? Because I don't think that's come up yet. So just one thing to ask, I guess, when we have our next meeting. You're muted.
I don't think the planning commission will be involved with that. I feel like they're more about like, structural changes and stuff. So I don't know. That's a good question. Just what's the bureaucratic process? Okay. What's the process for approving? And I know that the city commissioners are all very eager to see this sustainability plan too.
I guess I have another question, which probably is for down the road, which is when these priorities get prioritized and passed, what's the mechanism for funding things that are going to need some money in order to be done?
Yep. So yeah, all that stuff is kind of still in the works. The one positive thing that is already on paper is a request for next year's budget for a staff member. It hasn't been approved yet. And that staff member, my understanding is they call the manager level within the city. So I'm not sure, but it sounds like they are requesting a full-time position with, in the budget. So that part is already kind of, in the works. Like I said, it's not approved yet, but some of the other stuff, I think it has to kind of go through each department. I mean, there's transportation, there's all these different places. So I think all that stuff is still that's a great question. I think all that stuff is yet to be fleshed out, but we definitely should push on that to get it all, set in stone. Because you're right, without the funding for it, it'll just be a nice plan that kind of goes in a binder and sits on the shelf.
Yeah, I think the short answer is it's going to come from lots of pots of money. Like Aaron said, with capital budgets for like replacing city vehicles is one pot of money, infrastructure and stormwater management, separate pot of money. And hopefully one thing we've talked about a few times in the small meetings, we can try to direct some Foundation for Excellence cash into these much needed projects.
All right, anybody else? Any more input or questions or anything on hopefully we'll see a sustainability and climate action plan here in the next month or so. All right, hearing none, moving on. Natural features. Oh, did I hear something? No. All right, natural features protection overlay phase 2 update. So who would like to speak to that? I was not, I did not hop on to the city commission meeting, but I saw the the article today. I guess I didn't realize that it was going to be expanded to such a great degree. It's a lot of parcels that are now included in the NFP. So who was there? How did it go? Lori, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, it was it was very, very gratifying. There was a long list of people who called in, as well as the written communications that the commissioners had gotten in their packet, which was also quite long. And they all were in favor of the expansion and came at it from a whole lot of different viewpoints, all of which you all are probably very familiar with. There was one call-in from someone who said that at first they were daunted by this because they owned some developmental property, but having read carefully and watched the NFP board and seen the intent of this, they had become in favor of that, and that was Joe Gismundo. I think that carried a lot of weight, but there was absolutely no opposition to the ordinance, and it passed unanimously.
Yeah, that is great news. So thanks to the City Commission, the Planning Commission for running that through the normal process and, bringing it to a successful conclusion. It was great to hear, a property owner starting out kind of generally opposed, worried about, additional regulation. But I think it's great that, that he was able to just kind of see what it was about and learn a little bit about it and come around to the other side. It'd be great if we could see more of that in our community and in our world. Everybody's got, their opinions, and, it doesn't always necessarily make your opinion right. The more you listen and, try to engage with details of specific issues, the more kind of common ground I think can be found.
There was also an interesting Sidelight specific issue, which was a letter from Friendship Village, which caused the text to be made more specific. And I don't know if that was in the article because I haven't seen the article about it, but in order to make sure that projects to improve the area of Friendship Village would not be considered detrimental or against the NFP, a whole new paragraph was added about improvements about measures which would improve the ecology of the property that was under the NFP be okayed. And it was just a testimonial to the fact that this is a very flexible document. It's a very flexible process, and I think it was met with, relief on their part and with support on the part of the commission. The commission came out looking really, really progressive and constructive.
All right. Any other comments on the NFP update? All right, hearing none. We are moving right along here. All right, deer survey, Dr. Melowish and Dr. Walter, have you heard any updates on when we might see the results of the community survey, which my understanding there was some 2,000 respondents to, which is quite a few more respondents, I think, than the city typically gets to a survey like that. Dr. Melowish?
Yeah, I talked with Pete Kushner, who's the president of the Winchell Drive Oakland Neighborhood Association, who's heading up this deer committee. And I talked to him a couple days ago, and he has not heard about the results of the survey yet. And he told me that he was a little, anxious to get the results. So he said sometime this week he was going to dig into it with them and see what's holding it up or whatever. So that's what I know about it. I don't know what Gail has heard anything differently.
Yeah, I have been also in communication with Pete, and I wanted to also just sort of make an official statement that there is no proposal to cull deer. There's no proposal by any group, the ECC, the Adhoc Committee, or the city at this time to cull deer. There's just been a survey that has been, filled out by, a number of citizens. So I have had the opportunity to read an initial draft report from the survey results. And I know that the next step will be sending this draft to the rest of the Adhoc Committee. And I think that the ECC will be pleased with, it's a very thorough and very long report. It's almost 40 pages long. And it really outlines a lot and comes up with recommendations and suggestions to the city. And of course, this is, these are decisions that need to be made by the city of Kalamazoo. But, the recommendations are based on phases and, include public education, changes that the city can make now to make living with deer more agreeable, such as modifying fence ordinances and deer carcass removal program and, a number of different things. And this is all part of a deer management plan. A deer management plan is not culling deer. It's living with deer. That is the whole objective, is the management of living with deer. So part of it is also a recommendation to the city to gather more data, to do population surveys of the deer. And so, I think you will be pleased to see this when it comes out. It does need to be reviewed, and input needs to be gathered from the rest of the Adhoc Committee before it, the report is, is finalized. So anyway, so that's the information that I have at this time, and I don't know that there's a date set of when, how long the Adhoc Committee will be given to review the draft before it is back. So I don't have a timeline that I can, share. But anyway, it is in progress, and it is I think a very good and thorough report.
Awesome, thanks, Gail. Yeah, we're looking forward to seeing that. Ian, did you have a question?
Yeah, I have three little things. Clarifying question, and maybe Gail or Dr. Meliush can enlighten us on it. Is Pete Kushner the person that has the data? My understanding was the city was running the survey. So why do we have to wait for Pete to have access to the data before we see it? So that's question one. And then thing two is, Gail, I think your point is fair about nobody is number one option is deer call. But I mean, the main publicity about this has been talking about sharpshooters and then a lot of the other strategies you're talking about. But regardless, killing the animals in order to reduce their population is a cull. So I'm not sure if we're disagreeing on definition there. And then could you talk a little bit more about who was involved with the with putting together that management plan, specifically people involved and where your gut tells you they are on the issue? Thank you.
Okay, let me start with your last question first. there is no management plan yet. I mean, that is the recommendation to the city, is for the city to come up with a management plan. So, you know, that is one of the recommendations. I think that the focus on sharpshooters and culling is skewed. That isn't the focus. And so I'm not sure where that perspective comes from. And the report is being written by Pete Kushner. And so the data in and of itself, you know, needs to be put into context and interpreted. And so that's the idea of is the presentation of the data is what the report is. So, you know, if you just give people a bunch of numbers, it doesn't really make sense into the context. It needs to be, you know, put into a format that is readable. And that's what he's doing.
Okay, then I would like to thank you for that clarification. Then I would like to propose that the ECC be granted access to the raw data, because Pete's position on this is clear, and I don't like him being the person writing the report and submitting it without us seeing the raw data. I don't think that's ethical. If he's already he's got a public position that he wants some kind of management plan. And I don't think he should be the one also like the middleman between the data and what we see. Does that make sense?
I can't imagine, Ian, that we wouldn't be able to see that they couldn't, you know, he couldn't attach it as a appendix or whatever, the report, and then here's the actual, you know, here's the count of how many people responded this, how many people responded that. I mean, that's the only data that needs to be analyzed, is just the count of how many people said yes, no, or maybe, right?
That would be my guess too, but I just want to make it absolutely clear that that's my request, that we see both the raw data and whatever report comes out. So thank you.
And just to kind of go over the timeline here, we've heard from several people today that are, you know, very opposed to any type of call or sharpshooters or bringing hunters in or whatever. But the city has also heard from lots of people who are, you know, looking for some type of deer, what they call deer management, right? And so the city staff suggested and requested to Pete Kushner that he, you know, get this ad hoc committee, and the ad hoc committee is a representative committee of, you know, and it's most of the neighborhood associations, right, Gail? Yeah. So I mean, it's, you know, it's a representative group of people from the city that are, you know, trying to come up with some kind of response to a legitimate concern that has been expressed repeatedly over many years to city staff. So, but you know, just because we get a report and a recommendation doesn't necessarily mean that we're gonna, you know, end up headed that way. You know, there's a variety of opinion in the community. There's a variety of opinion here on the ECC, and I don't feel like we can do anything. There's really not much more to talk about until we actually see the report. And then if there's an issue with the report where we feel like it's not, like there's more, if we need to see more raw data, then we can kind of request it at, you know, at that point.
I guess I have a question which perhaps only reflects my own ignorance, but who was surveyed and what were they asked, and how does that in itself determine action on the part of the city? I mean, the survey was of opinions, right? And I'm sure there's a huge variety of opinions.
Did you not see the survey, Lori?
I've never seen it.
Oh, okay. So it was just sent out, you know, put out to the public on Facebook and whatever other platforms the city would typically use for for a city survey. So any citizen could, you know, get on and answer the survey one time. And it was a pretty lengthy survey. I don't know if there was, how many questions were on the thing? 30 or 40, but there's a lot of questions. And I think most of them, I can't remember if it was like a yes or no to a lot of them, or if it was like a Likert scale. You know, do you think we should do it all the way or a little bit or not at all? But it looked like a pretty standard survey to me.
And I also want to share that the results of the survey are not determining action. You know, so that's another whole, you know, just point to remember is that, yeah, the results of the survey are not going to determine action.
Ian?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's thank you, Gail. That's a very good point. And I just wanted to, this will be my final 2 cents on it. Aaron, I just wanted to reflect on a couple of your comments. Just I don't know who's on the committee, but when you say representative committee, to my knowledge, all of the people on that committee want the plan already. So that complicates it a little bit. And then to your point about it being a legitimate concern, it's certainly a concern because I know you've been dealing with it since you joined, and it's been a perennial thing since I've joined. And I think part of the purpose of and since Lori apparently, part of the purpose of the survey is to determine the legitimacy of the problem, because we also need lots of data. Because I think, not to dig up too much old stuff, but at the very beginning, the issue that I've been raising a lot is we don't know if it's a legitimate concern or if it's just, you know, the opinion of a couple property owners. So I'm looking forward to the data. I just wanted to, you know, make a few comments, and thanks.
So you know, the representatives from the neighborhood associations, I don't know. They were asked to participate in the ad hoc committee. I have to imagine that there's a range of opinion within that group too. I don't think that I think it's like, I don't know if it's the heads of the neighborhood associations or their secretaries or whoever, somebody that's involved with all the current neighborhood associations, but I don't think there's any reason to guess that that all of them would be, you know, are for some type of deer management program.
Yeah, fair point. I just meant that the people that I'm aware of that are on it, all of them are pro plan of some kind, whatever the plan is, whether it's education or more extreme.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with Ian and Aaron. I think it absolutely makes sense that everyone on that would be people that are interested in it because they have an opinion towards the deer. So I definitely don't think there's anyone that would be on that would be an extreme opposite end of, or any kind of a well-rounded thing. I think it's people with vested interest in their own ways, which is a lot of people's gardens specifically.
Yeah, but I don't know if, like, you know, the president of the Eastwood Neighborhood Association is necessarily, I don't know that deer is an issue over there that much, because there's not those little pockets of open green space where deer can survive. So I don't know. They were asked to do it. They didn't. It's not like they had put out any kind of opinion ahead of time. And, you know, maybe getting together with that group, you know, if the majority of those people think that we should do some kind of deer call or deer management, maybe it's helped shape their opinion. But again, there's no reason to assume that the head of every neighborhood association in the city of Kalamazoo is for some kind of deer call.
If I can clarify, every neighborhood association was invited to participate and be on this committee. Some, you know, did, some were not heard back from. And then of course, the survey was open to any resident who wanted to fill that out. And so I think it's not a fair assumption to say that everybody on the committee has the same opinion. And I also want to be very clear that deer management is not the same as deer call. Deer management is how to live in a city as a person with the wildlife that we have. That is the management. So it is not synonymous with deer call. And So anyway, I just wanted to make those points clear, like to please not jump to assumptions about what some other people's opinions might be who are serving on the committee.
Sorry, if I could clarify, I wasn't trying to say that everyone was interested in a deer call. I do think everyone to join that committee would have to be interested in deer management, but that doesn't mean that that's any one thing. So I'm not trying to assume that. I just think you can't say that people aren't interested in the subject if they joined that specific committee. And just in general, the way that the committee was formed was not, it was biased. So the way that we just need to remember through that lens and really look at the data again. It's about the data.
Every neighborhood association was asked to join. That was not bias.
What was the survey trying to find out? If there were 40 questions, I mean, was it basically, is there a groundswell of feeling in the city that this is a problem and that something should be done with it? So
Yes.
why did it take 40 questions to find that out?
I don't know if it was 40. It was a lengthy survey. It just, the city staff has heard consistent concerns over many years from multiple citizens that, you know, they're concerned about
15 years ago, right?
concerned about the deer population. And so the purpose of the survey was to see if that, you know, if that concern was more widespread or, you know, just maybe one or two neighborhoods, something like that. Dr. Melowish?
The impetus for forming the committee is because, yes, it's been complained about, the deer have been complained about for a long time. However, a lot of people will have been coming to at least our Oakland Drive meeting, complaining that it's getting worse and worse and worse, rather overwhelming. And so that was the impetus to let's really find out what's going on. And we didn't know, I didn't know as a member of the committee, what the other parts of the city were going to tell us. And that's why we have the survey. And the survey asks all sorts of questions about deer in the city. You know, what would you be against this kind of deer management, for it? How much trouble do you have? A lot, a little, and it's all on a scale of 1 to 5. And I'd suggest maybe the city could give our members here who want one a copy of the survey if they're not familiar with it, and just go over it for their own understanding of how extensive it was. We're asking the whole city so we can find out, where is the problem? How bad is it? You know, is it for a few people or a lot of people, et cetera? So I would try to get a copy of the survey from the city and go over it yourselves and see, oh yeah, this is a really extensive survey, like Dr. Walter was saying, with all sorts of points of view represented on a scale of 1 to 5. And understand that the impetus comes from a lot of people perceiving that the problem's getting worse and worse. Thank you.
All right. I appreciate everybody's input here. I don't really think there's a whole lot we can do until we see this report. For folks watching at home, you know, just know, I mean, I think you can hear that we've got a variety of opinion and strong opinion on the ECC, and that it is, you know, an impossibility that it would somehow skip over our committee and somehow go to, you know, the city would rely on us for a recommendation of, you know, looking at what, you know, what we should or shouldn't do with our wildlife population here. So I think we've had a good discussion here, and hopefully we'll see the survey results so that we can kind of move on to the next part of this discussion. Item 8, new business. There is no new business. Nicole, welcome. I see you've made it to the meeting. Nice to see you. Yeah, I didn't have anything new to put on there this month. You know, let me know if there's anything any of you are interested in discussing for next month. Moving on to subcommittee reports. Bobby is not here to do the NFP review board, but that's really kind of all good news right now that it's been expanded. Hopefully we can hear from him next month if there were any specific cases and what the NFP review board recommended. Air and water quality, Bobby and I have not met in the last month or so, so there's really not much to there's nothing to report there, and I'll get to Odor Task Force stuff at the end. Wildlife and natural resource protection, Dr. Walter. You are muted, Gail.
Okay, I haven't said anything important anyway. I have not printed out a report, but there have been cases of West Nile virus that are starting to be seen, not here in Kalamazoo County, but elsewhere in the state. So now that we're getting into mid-August and into September is when we will expect to see cases of West Nile virus and triple E. Hopefully we don't see any, but the mosquitoes have, of course, been horrendous. And I don't know, Aaron, if you've been in touch with Dr. Walker from MSU of any of his mosquito survey results. I sent an email to Aaron just before this meeting about a short course that some people might be interested in on biophilic cities. And it's called Seeding the Biophilic Cities. Anyway, if you're interested, maybe Aaron can put that in the Google Drive. It is a little pricey for an individual. It's $560, and it's over. There's 4 online sessions of several hours each, and has to do with city planning and design using a biophilic lens. So anyway, I just passed that information along if anybody was interested, and I sent it also to Jamie McCarthy in case she was interested. So the Falcons are doing well. I think the youngsters have finally left. So that's my update on Peregrine Falcons as well.
All right, thanks very much, Gail. Waste management and litter. Has that group met recently? Is there anything to update there? Okay.
No, we haven't met, but if you want to add Nicole to the list, she was at one of our most recent ones too.
Oh, okay, great. I'm now realizing I forgot to mention that Commissioner Hess was also excused absence. She was on vacation, I think. I am still working on creating a spreadsheet of litter pickups and working with a couple of guys in the city staff to try to get that put together and hopefully kind of posted on the city's new website, which I'm not exactly sure when that's supposed to launch, if it's like the beginning of next year. But I plan to kind of keep working on that. I've got one other thing for you, Sharon, but I will send that to you in an email. I think I had a suggestion. Somebody gave me a suggestion I want to pass along to you. Planning Commission, Ian.
Real quick, since it's not on our agenda, but related to the previous one, we did talk at the beginning about the styrofoam pickup in July. Went really well. I think we can still do better about educating what kind of styrofoam is accepted, because we still have to throw out some, like if it's like really dirty is one, and if it's insulation, I believe we can't use that. And then polystyrene that looks, or not, no, sorry, not polystyrene, but there is a thing that looks like styrofoam, but it's actually made of plastic, and we have to pitch that too. I believe the next one is the last Saturday in October, but we'll have another meeting to confirm that ahead of time. But filled up 3/4 of the trailer, which is pretty cool. And if there's just a call out, we had enough people to like make it through the day, but it would be easier if we had more people show up to the next one, especially those not on the call, like on this committee right now. Could definitely use some young people, particularly young men, making the call out for that. But moving on to Planning Commission, pretty light meeting. They talked about a dog kennel approval, a multifamily dwelling approval, and then updated their schedule for the rest of the year. Nothing major from them, so that's my report.
Awesome. Thanks, Ian. Sounds riveting. The dog kennel thing, that sounds okay. Tree committee, Gail, has the tree committee had, you guys had a chance to get together and talk about, if you had a tree ordinance?
Yeah, we actually, so we've had some meetings and we actually had our initial meeting, the tree ordinance revision. And so we will be having another meeting soon. You know, it was just the first meeting was kind of a kickoff and everybody throwing out ideas of everybody, you know, of what, you know, what are their bullet point issues that they'd like to make sure are included in the next revision. So we will be meeting again soon. So I don't have any real nuts and bolts to tell you about at this point, but things are in motion. So that's a good sign. And I wanted to report that the city has received a $25,000 grant from Michigan DNR to do a tree survey. So they're doing a tree inventory of the city and have gotten the funding. It is the biggest grant funding that the DNR has handed out for that kind of thing. So I thought that was pretty impressive. So that's going to be happening this fall sometime. I don't know if there are exact dates or, you know, how long of a period of time that's going to need to happen. But anyway, it will happen this fall and they have the funding for it. And so we will have a tree inventory soon.
Great. Do you know how that, because we've got the urban tree canopy map. How will that, do you know how that map will kind of be affected by an inventory, like what the inventory would be used for?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I do not know. I'm guessing that the inventory will update that map
Okay.
to make it current. But it's a good question, and I don't really understand the particulars.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks, Gail, for staying on it with the tree committee. Sharon and maybe Lori, Asylum Lake Policy and Management Council.
I'm trying to think if there's anything super important. Lori, can you think of anything? Oh, I don't know if she's there. Yeah, I don't remember anything super significant in the last meeting.
Okay.
Pass along.
Thank you. Rob, did you get a chance to visit Parks and Rec?
Yeah, so they're already kind of getting ahead of the seasons and planning some winter activities for the parks, like cross-country skiing and mountain biking. So mountain biking has been a topic for a while just because Blanch Hole Park, they wanted to put a whole course there. But they're also talking about like those fat tire bikes that are definitely intended for like the muddier areas and everything. So they're kind of discussing the best places to do that. And Blanch Hole Park is the big one that they want to do. And also Governor Whitmer has apparently authorized like $150 million to be spread out across the country for the intent of improving parks and everything. They haven't learned what is going to Kalamazoo yet, but the budget right now is close to $2 million with 1.5 just for operating or and expenses and keeping them up. So if they allocate any more, I'm sure that it will be put to good use. And the good news is that they're also streaming, so anybody who wants to tune in can. There will be some visitors to the parks, but they'll also be streamed again. So that's helpful to people who can't go to the parks for the monthly meetings.
All right, thanks, Rob. Jean Talanda, we have not heard from recently. I'll try to email her and see if she can come in for a quarterly visit here. See if she's got any updates on the Wellhead Protection Program Committee. Kalamazoo River Watershed Council, Nicole, have there been any meetings there? Anything to report?
Still no meetings. I did reach out by phone and email to the director just to introduce myself and let them know that I'm interested in joining the meetings. I wasn't sure, Ian, if you had actually been on a meeting or if you hadn't because of the pandemic. So I wanted to make sure that they kind of had my contact info and knew that I wanted to be present. So I've done that. I haven't heard anything back yet. So far, nothing.
Yeah, no, I never went. To my knowledge, there wasn't one during the time that I was assigned to it.
Yeah, it sounds like their meetings are pretty sporadic. So, but I guess just, keep your ear open, and if they do have a meeting, hopefully you can be included. All right, last piece here, Odor Task Force. So there was an Odor Task Force meeting last week. Where did I put it? I've got some notes here. Okay. So, as far as the city goes, water reclamation plant, they've got 4 new carbon scrubber units online that were installed and should be working, and that was ahead of schedule. In addition, because they installed some kind of new sewer monitoring system that can check for backups before they get to the surface, and that monitoring system also has an odor monitoring component. Those data sets would be separate though from the EnviroSuite, so it's a separate. It's basically the same thing, same type of odor monitoring system, but it's a separate database. Plus, that information is coming from inside of the sewer, so the readings, I'm sure, would be stronger than at surface level. As far as graphic packaging, so they changed the chemicals that they use basically to try to knock down odors. They used some kind of proprietary mix up until the beginning of this year, and they would really only use it kind of sporadically too. But now they've gone to this oxygen and hydrogen peroxide mix that they kind of inject into their lines or whatever, and it's not intermittent. They're doing it on a regular basis. They shared graphic packaging, shared I can remember it was back to January. It's like 4 to 6 months worth of data from the EnviroSuite system. I think they've got like 16 monitors. There wasn't a graph, but I could see that the levels that they had on here, which are measured in parts per billion, there weren't any measurements on there that went, that were super high. So like, you're at like 10 parts per billion. I think like once you get up above like 20 parts per billion, it can get to be an issue, but all the numbers, and it was a lot of numbers to kind of, scroll over with your eyes, but I did ask them to kind of put it into a graphic form and ideally put some cut lines in there with some descriptions of what the different cut lines are. If there's other states, because we don't have any type of, there's no state regulation for odor limits, but other states have some. There's some federal limits. Most of the limits are for enclosed indoor spaces, but it would still, I think, be useful to get a good graphic so that you can see over time, over a long period of time, what, how much hydrogen sulfide might be present in the atmosphere in and around the plant, as well as because again, hydrogen sulfide is the sort of the easiest gas to measure for, but there might be multiple other chemical compounds that would be associated with that, but you can measure best for the hydrogen sulfide. So anyways, it was mostly good news. Monica Brothers from Eagle said there haven't really been any real specific odor complaints to her office this season, which is a reduction from she saw some complaints last year. And then the city put online odor monitoring website. So if you've got a complaint, and I know I sent that link out to everybody, if and it's on the city's website, you got to kind of dig to find it. But if you've got a complaint about specific odor at a specific place at a specific time, you can log that, and they go back and use the modeling software from the EnviroSuite system to kind of confirm or otherwise, see, well, if you saw it, if you feel like you smelled it at this time at this place, now we can backtrack and match that up. Well, the wind was blowing that way, and there was, there probably was gas coming out of a sewer vent or whatever. And they did have one. There is a nurse, I think, that works at, or a doctor that works at Borges that has kind of been on top of the odor issue over the last however many years. And she did log a complaint, and they were able to use that modeling software to backtrack it and kind of confirm that, yes, that, the wind would have carried that, very likely carried that odor up the hill. And then they can go back and look to find kind of the source point to see where that odor was coming from, and see if there's something they can do different with their processes to try to avoid that happening again in the future. Last thing, they are so Graphic Packaging is doing a huge expansion, and they're expected to be done with that expansion, late this year, early next year, I think. And at that point, the water reclamation plant will be able to go in and do the big construction project that they've planned to mitigate odor, digging out that junction chamber and rerouting the effluent, the outflow from Graphic Packaging, and putting kind of a vacuum seal on that pipe so that those odors ideally are not escaping into the atmosphere. So all that stuff is, they've got it, it's all in the budget, and they're expected to, I think they've already spent somewhere around $2 million on carbon scrubbers. Not sure what the budget was for the junction chamber project, but it sounds like the plan for that is hopefully late summer or fall of next year, they'll be able to start that construction. So it's all kind of good news as far as odor task force goes. Any questions?
Yeah, just a clarifying one. When you're talking about that junction, so the carbon scrubbers are $2 million by the city, right, for public works, and then the junction is also public works, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
It's underneath Graphic Packaging's parking lot. It kind of butts right up to the fence line between the water reclamation plant and Graphic Packaging. But all those sewer pipes, city has right of way or whatever to dig underneath there and fix it.
Cool. And do you remember if anything has come up in those meetings? So the city cut Graphic Packaging a $20 million tax break, which for those who aren't policy nerds, a tax break is an expenditure by the city of $20 million over whatever set period of time. And in that MLive article, it mentioned that there was some kind of strings attached with reference to maybe the odor or maybe the emissions. Does that come up, what those strings are? Because it wasn't clear to me. And if you don't know, that's okay.
No. The expectation that the city commissioners put on that deal last fall was that the water reclamation plant and folks from Graphic Packaging would come and report, give regular updates quarterly on what odor emissions they've been able to measure and what steps they're taking to mitigate it. So yes, that the tax break is contingent on regular reporting and database progress on trying to get rid of the odor issue. The last piece, we're still waiting. Yeah, I think did I share that article, the MLive article with everybody? I think I did. You know, kind of the separate issue of negative health outcomes, asthma rates, other respiratory issues that, you know, might possibly be associated with living in that area. We're still awaiting the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services data review, along with they're working with the EPA, the National Air Toxics Assessment, something or other. But I haven't heard anything from William Farrell is the staff at Michigan Department of Health and Human Services that is putting that report together. Haven't heard when we might expect that, but I know a lot of people are be very interested to see what that report shows.
Cool, thanks. And I guess I have one last question before we adjourn, and I don't know if we needed to check for public comment again too, but I haven't heard anything about the river in a little bit, but I was just wondering if anybody else has heard anything about the cleanup effort, if they're making progress or not. So thank you.
I have not heard anything. It doesn't sound like anybody else has either. Yeah, so do we have any further, do we have any more citizen calls, pertaining to what we just finished up discussing here?
No public comments at this time.
Okay. Holy moly, it's 5:42. I cannot believe that we got through this meeting in such an efficient fashion. So thanks very much, everybody. Let me know if there's anything you want to put on for new business for next month. But otherwise, enjoy the end of your summer here, and we'll see you in September.
Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron, and city staff.
Yeah,
Thanks, Aaron.
Yep. Thanks, everybody.